welcome to my happy place. So I've been thinking about doing this for quite some time now, and well, I guess there's no better time than the present. I'm recording this on the first day of the coronavirus or COVID-19 lockdown in the UK. So basically, like you, I've got nothing better to do and no excuses. So welcome to the inaugural episode of the Follow the Blue Line podcast. My name's John Hayes and I'll be your host. Some of you might know me as the author of Follow the Blue Line, Cycling the Algarve, which, as the name suggests, is a book about cycling in the Algarve region of Portugal. In the coming weeks, and maybe even months ahead, if I've got the energy to continue with this, I'll be sharing all of my chaotic and rather random thoughts about cycling, life, the universe, and everything, as well as hopefully introducing you to my good friends, collectively known as the Portugal Pie Eaters, and essentially putting the world to rights. One of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast is I believe there's a real gap in the market. Sure, there's a ton of great cycling content out there, both on the web and in the printed media. I'm personally a real big fan of the Global Cycling Network, or GCN, on YouTube. By the way, talking about YouTube, I've got a couple of really good reasons for doing this as a podcast, not a YouTube video. Number one, I hate speaking in front of the camera. It's bad enough just to do this into a microphone because, let's face it, nobody likes the sound of their own voice. And number two, even before the lockdown, I needed a haircut and a shave. If this goes on for too much longer, I'm going to end up looking like Cat Weasel, but that's a different story. So I don't see too much content for people like me and my friends. We like to get out there on our bikes and have our little adventures, but we're not obsessed with the latest bike tech, and we'd be laughed out of the group if we boasted about our latest PB. So this podcast is for the rest of us who just prefer to enjoy the journey rather than to dig deep into the data of the ride. We don't ride expensive carbon frame bikes or wear premium kit from Rafa when Sports Direct suits us just fine. Some people don't like that, and we're okay with that. This podcast is for anyone who just wants to embrace the freedom of cycling anywhere in the world, and not just in the UK where we live or Portugal where we like to ride. If you remember what it was like to jump on your bike as a kid and just lose yourself for the day without any worries, you're in the right place. So, what's happening in your world? You know, it's funny, when I'm stuck at home on a cold, grey, windy day in northeast Lincolnshire, I often think about what my friends around the world are doing. What are Pat and Stuart up to in Budapest? What's Chris doing in Cairo? What are Hank and Maria doing in North Carolina? Well, I suppose at this moment in time, they're doing exactly what I'm doing, sitting at home and waiting for something to happen. Or to be more accurate, waiting for something not to happen, because that is by far the best outlook in a situation like this. So, I'm pretty lucky. I work from home, and touch wood, not too much has changed for me since the virus came to town, and hopefully it'll keep that way. The one thing that has changed is my annual ride across Portugal, barring any miracles, has pretty much been delayed. We're never going to say cancelled. We, the aforementioned Portugal Pie Eaters, were due to fly out to the Algarve in May for what would have been our 5th anniversary ride along the Algarve coast. I probably should mention the Portugal Pie Eaters got their name from our collective love of the Portuguese egg custard tarts, pastel de nata. It's nothing to do with our love of pies, although if you've seen our photos on Facebook, it's clear that some of us do have a bit of a pie problem as well. I think I can speak collectively for the guys that this ride is incredibly important for us. We're all busy people with busy family and work lives, and those 3 days in the saddles, slowly working our way from the Spanish border to the western Atlantic coast, acts as much as an important pressure release valve than anything else. Out of all of us, I can probably be the only one who can say with a degree of honesty that I'm a cyclist. I mean, Dave hasn't even got a bike. I've had a long-standing bet with him since our first ride that he would fall in love with cycling and go out and buy a bike. It hasn't happened yet. I think he's holding off just to spite me. Don't get me wrong, I'm far from being an athlete. I prefer to describe myself as a lifestyle and leisure cyclist rather than a mammal or roadie. I cycle every day, and at weekends tackle all manner of silly distances, but I'm still not very good at it. And that's the wonderful thing about the collection of friends I've taken on the journey with me. There's no competition. We just do it because we love it and enjoy each other's company. One of the things we were particularly looking forward to this year was welcoming a new pie eater to the fold. Now, don't get me wrong, the 150-mile ride we do is actually a lot easier than it sounds. That is, if, and it's quite a big if you have some miles in your legs on a bike. You just need to speak to Dave to confirm this. Mark, our latest recruit, hasn't been on a bike in about 15 years, so we're all very much looking forward to seeing his face on that big hill outside of Albufeira. Don't worry, Mark, the hills get easier after the first year. But as things go, it looks like he's going to have a few extra months to try and get some training in, so we'll see what happens with that. We're looking at October now, but pretty much like everyone else, we've no idea when things will get back to normal. I suspect a lot of things will change between now and then, and we'll be experiencing a new normal. If nothing else, the coronavirus has made me focus on my health and made me realise how lucky I am to be in reasonably good health. Yes, I've got high blood pressure, but that's managed with tablets, and I could do with losing a few pounds, and that's something I've been working on since the beginning of the year, almost losing a stone in weight following the 5-2 diet. That's basically a process of intermediate fasting 2 days a week. If you wonder why I'm in such a bad mood on Mondays and Wednesdays, you'll know now why. Perhaps we'll speak about this on a future podcast because it's actually relevant to my cycling. It's also made me think a lot about people who aren't so lucky. Every year we pick a charity to support on the ride. In the past, we've raised considerable amounts of money with the support of our friends and wider social networks for the British Red Cross, Crohn's and Colitis UK, and Mind, the mental health charity. The selection of these charities has always had a personal element to one or more of the pie eaters, and this year is no different. For the 2020 ride, we hope to raise a staggering amount of money for Lymphoma Action, which is an amazing charity helping people, including a good friend of the pie eaters, living with lymphoma. Now, you might not be aware of the condition, but it's the 5th most common form of cancer in the UK. So while our ride might be delayed, we wanted to let you know our fundraising efforts will almost certainly carry on. If you're interested in learning more about our campaign, you can visit our Just Giving page online at justgiving.com/Portugal 2020. And so back to the current situation here in the UK and the rest of the world. What can I say? We're all in this together, so we've just got to sit it out. Or do we? Boris Johnson told me yesterday it was still okay to go for a bike ride once a day, and I'll be following his advice in an attempt to keep up the fitness levels. But I'm also very conscious of the risks I'm taking by going out in public, so I'm going to be sticking to quiet country roads while I'll be riding alone and not pushing myself too hard. The last thing I want to do is crash and wind up in a hospital at this difficult time for the NHS. I'll also probably be sticking to relatively short rides, 20 or 30 kilometres max, and I guess any cafe stops will have to be a thing of the past unless I can sneak a flask of coffee and a Danish into my panniers. In the past couple of days, I've noticed the roads have either been completely empty, which is brilliant for us cyclists, or completely rammed, which isn't so good. This is particularly true around the major supermarkets, and yesterday I saw there was a 2-mile tailback going into a McDonald's drive-thru before the restaurant finally closed for business for the duration of the lockdown. I've also noticed that the few car drivers I'm sharing the road with have been a bit more aggressive than normal. Seriously guys, if you're maintaining a safe 2-metre distance from your fellow human beings while trying to buy toilet rolls at Tesco, could you please extend the same courtesy to us cyclists when we're out on the road? Okay, it would be all too easy to focus on the negative during this crisis, but we're staying optimistic. Remember, we're all in this together, so try not to stress or worry too much. I know I'm lucky to have the opportunity to get out on my bike. My friends in Portugal and elsewhere in the world might not have the same luxury, and I'm certainly seeing less activity on the Portugal Pie Eaters Strava Club. By the way, you don't need to live in Portugal to join the Pie Eaters and Strava. It's more about attitude than anything else. As a group, we want to inspire each other to do better. It doesn't matter if you cycle a mile or 100 miles. We're all here to encourage you. I'm also lucky to have time on my hands to plan some of the things I've been thinking about for a while now, thus this podcast. And hopefully, very soon, a new short book about my recent ride across Belgium. As anyone who knows me or has read my books will know, planning is not my forte. I'm much more of a doer. The current situation might be preventing me from doing more, but the plans I'm putting in place for activities after we're all out of lockdown will be phenomenal and, in all likelihood, fall apart within moments of me putting them into practice, which is just the way I like them. So what can you expect on future episodes? Well, We'll have memories from my fellow pie eaters about previous rides, and we'll share our plans for future rides and even take you along with us. And there'll be plenty of opportunities to connect with you along the way. So how are you coping with the lockdown, and what are your plans for when you get back to normal? Let us know on Facebook at facebook.com/followthebluelinebook, or join the Portugal Pie Eaters on Strava. You'll find us in the club section. And don't forget, if you've enjoyed this podcast and you want to learn more about the Portugal Pie Eaters' misadventures across Portugal and beyond, you can pick up a copy of my book, Follow the Blue Line, Cycling the Algarve. It's available on Amazon in ebook and audio formats for instant download. If you can wait a week or two due to the current delays in shipping due to the coronavirus, it's also available in paperback. If you manage to get your hands on a copy, I'd love to hear your thoughts. With all that said, my name's John Hayes. You've been listening to the Follow the Blue Line podcast. We'll catch up with you all again very soon, and in the meantime, stay safe.